Hi, I'm Anne from the Lawrence Library, and I'm here with my great-niece Q to talk about the poetry of William Butler Yeats. And he was born in 1865 in Dublin. Both his maternal and paternal families came from England and settled in the Irish area as part of the Protestant ascendancy in Ireland. And they were very well-to-do. His father was a lawyer who decided to become an artist later in life, and his mother was from County Sligo, and she brought with her all kind of folklore and fairy tales that influenced him, and he always kind of associated himself with that area of Ireland. And his brother was a very famous artist in Ireland also, and his sisters were in the arts and craft movement, so altogether they were an artistic family. And when he was in school at 17, he published his first poem. And he was very interested in writing and in poetry, and so he continued to do that throughout his life. He was looking at folklore and fairy tales and magical things from that age, and one of his first poems was this short poem, which isn't very well known, but it's called Fairy Song. The wind blows out of the gates of the day, the wind blows over the lonely of heart, and the lonely of heart is withered away, while the fairies dance in a place apart, shaking their milk-white feet in a ring, tossing their milk-white arms in the air, for they hear the wind laugh and murmur and sing of a land where even the old are fair, and even the wise are merry of tongue. But I heard a reed of Kulani say, when the wind has laughed and murmured and sang, the lonely of heart is withered away. So that period lasted a while, and he was also very much influenced by Blake and Shelley, and became pretty much a romantic poet. And the poem that Q is going to read is about someone he met when young. Her name was Maud Gunn, and he was infatuated by her. She was an heiress, she was an actress, she was a fiery nationalist, and she was not infatuated with him. So he asked her to marry him, and she refused. And here's one of the poems that he wrote for her.
He wishes for the cloths of heaven. Had I the heavens' embroidered cloths, inwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light, I would spread the cloths under your feet, but I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams.
Okay, very romantic poetry. And he wrote another one, which is thought to be also about Maud Gunn, and she was his muse for many, many years. And in this one, he is saying, someday you will be old, and all those admirers who are around you now, they will not be there. But I saw the pilgrim soul in you, and you will perhaps regret that we didn't get together. And it's called When You Are Old. When you are old and gray and full of sleep and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read and dream of the soft look your eyes had once and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace and loved your beauty with love false and true. But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you, and loved the sorrows of your changing face, and bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled and paced upon the mountains overhead, and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. So he not only wrote poetry, but he wrote many plays, and he became a friend of someone called Lady Gregory, and that was really her full name, Amelia Lady Gregory, something like that. And together they founded the Abbey Theatre, which was very influential in the Irish Renaissance, literary Renaissance, and is still famous today, and was known for groundbreaking plays. And then, so he married when he was over 50. He had asked Maud Gunn 4 times to marry him, and she refused him 4 times. So he finally found someone else, and her name was Georgie Lee Hyde, and she was very helpful in managing his career. And she also was interested in the occult, as he was all his life. And she learned to do automatic writing, and they did that together, and they attended seances together. And he was interested in a lot of things on the magical, mystical line. And he was also, when he was young, he was a socialist, but then later on he changed his politics, and he was involved in politics in the Irish Senate. And he became flirting with eugenics and with fascism. He was interested in fascism, to the point where W.H. Auden said, how can he be so gifted as a poet and really love these absurd notions? And that was kind of the critical view of him. So they had mixed thoughts about him, but always his poetry was admired. And Hugh is going to read one of his most famous poems.
The Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there, of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and I live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day. I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. While I stand on the roadway, or on the pavement's gray, I hear it in the deep heart's core.
Thank you. And there actually is an Isle of Innisfree. It's just a small island. I think many people live there, but it became famous after this poem. And he continued writing poetry, and he won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923. And this really made him world famous. And one of his most anthologized poems is this one that I'm going to read. This is the last poem I'll read, called The Second Coming. And he had a theory about history, that history was like a turning gyre, and things that happened before would happen again. And so time after time, the world was on the brink of catastrophe. And he was saying that this might be, he wrote this poem right after the First World War, but before the Second World War. This might be such a time, called The Second Coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in the sands of the desert, a shape with a lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches toward Bethlehem to be born. So he continued writing until his death, and he was 73 years old when he died. And it's said that he's one of the most influential poets in the 20th century. And on his tombstone is his epitaph, which is, "Cast a cold eye on life, on death, horsemen pass by." So the Poetry Circle at the library meets once a month, and we're going to start again in September. So if you're interested, watch the events page on our website, mcl.org, and do join us.